How's it going, Rogues Gallery, and welcome to our first Flesh and Blood video of 2024. Today we're going to be talking about all of the heroes in Heavy Hitters. We already talked about Kassai. We're going to give her kind of like a once over and talk about all of the new heroes, including the reprint of Reinar. Going to give you my opinions of that, the new KO, Olympia, and big ol' Betsy. We haven't seen the new Guardian at the time of this recording, but maybe I'll just make a separate video when they get revealed. So yeah, I'm really excited to talk about these heroes. I think Heavy Hitters is shaping up to be a very fun set, especially for Limited. It reminds me of my favorite Flesh and Blood set of all time, which is Outsiders. We have 6 brand new heroes. We have no arcane shenanigan. It's just a good old fist fighting tussle, and I think it's gonna be a lot of fun. So let us go to the overlay and talk about some of these awesome new heroes. So let's start off just at the top with KO. I have a lot to say about KO. I think this is really interesting, and I think I really love the character development that this card also implies. So we have KO, armed and dangerous. KO now sans one arm, minus one arm, since we saw him last, is still looks like a powerhouse. So KO has the 4 intellect and 40 life. I'm going to shortcut it here. Every single hero has the basic stat line. They all have 4 intellect and 40 starting health. Or for the young versions, they have 4 intellect and 20 starting health. All the heroes we're going to talk about today, that's their stat lines. We're not going to go over it again. It's just basic stuff. So you don't have to worry about any hero having less life than others. For example, if you were drafting a lot of Outsiders and, Riptide, because Riptide had less starting health. Okay, so with that said, let's talk about KO, because KO is really cool. KO says you have 1 weapon zone, which makes sense because he's got only 1 arm, which means you may only have one-handed weapon or an offhand equipped, which is really interesting. I'm very curious to see what weapons we get for all of the classes here in Heavy Hitters, because we actually haven't seen any of them yet. In the artwork here, he's using the mandible claws, but we'll have to see if they get reprinted or if he gets new alternate weapons that he could use. All right, his ability is super cool. So it says, attack action cards you own get +1 while they are in any zone other than the combat chain. So, in your hand, in the graveyard, in the banner zone, any zone other than the combat chain. And he also says, the first time you discard a card with 6 or more attack during each of your action phases, create a might token. And if you don't know what a might token is, we have it down here. A might token is just a token that says, at the start of your turn, destroy this, then your next attack this turn gets +1. So that's just a great way to set up a future turn for a nice attack. What's really interesting about KO is that second ability that gives all attack action cards you own +1 while they are not on the combat chain. So basically, that turns stuff like your E-Strike into a 6 attack for discard purposes or even blocking purposes when you're blocking Illusionist Phantasm cards, right? So if you're playing against a Dromai, you can block with your Enlightened Strike and pop their dragon, which is really cool. It also makes, any of those 5 attack cards that are blues or yellows just that much more potent in the KO deck. So you, basically what I'm trying to say is this changes your deck building for this hero in particular when you're building KO as a brute, which is super cool to me. I love heroes that actually fundamentally change the way that you play the game or build decks, and KO does exactly that. You have your 1 weapon, you have like this +1 to all of your stuff, not on the combat chain. Really cool, really interesting, and I think KO is shaping up to be one of the most interesting heroes from the set, both from lore perspective as well as from like a gameplay perspective, both for Limited and for Constructed. So I'm a pretty big fan of KO. We have cards that obviously care about that 6 attack in the Heavy Hitter set. Stuff like No Fear, which says it's a 0 cost brute instant. As an additional cost to play this, banish any number of cards with 6 or more attack from your hand. At the beginning of your end phase, return them to your hand. The next time you would be dealt damage to this turn, prevent X of that damage, where X is 2 plus the number of cards banished this way. So it's a great, damage prevention effect. Probably pretty good and limited, but really cool and very ubiquitous inconstructed, so you can use this against any form of damage, arcane or otherwise, which I think is really, really cool. And of course, since you're playing KO, then you can banish those 5 attack cards, which is great. It also synergizes really well with the new Beat Chest ability, which is a targeted discard, which I think is very interesting for the next hero we're going to talk about. Beat Chest says, as additional cost to play this, you may discard a card with 6 or more attack. And then it says, your next brute attack this turn gets +3. If you've beaten a chest this turn, it gets +5. I love this card in particular for a couple different reasons. The fact that you still get +3 even if you don't beat chest, I think is really cool. But you can also get that +5 if you have done the beat chest effect. I think this card in particular will be really good in Rhinar, Reckless Rampage. So yes, this is a straight reprint of the original Rhinar from Welcome to Wraith. And I think, you know, this selected discard is really, really powerful for Rhinar in particular. And I think because of that, it makes Rhinar play maybe a little bit more different than you would in like WTR draft. And I actually like the inclusion of Rhinar in this set for that reason, because it feels like a new, you know, lease on life for Rhinar, at least in limited, right? Which I think is really cool. So reprinting heroes in a new light, I think is a really cool and interesting design space. Would I rather have had a brand new Rhinar? I mean, like, yeah, I would, but I still think this is pretty interesting. So yeah, I'm actually pretty excited to draft Rhinar in heavy hitters. I think it's gonna be a lot of fun. I think it's gonna be really, really strong because with an effect like Beat Chest, you get that Intimidate from Rhinar, because if you didn't know, Rhinar says whenever you discard a card with 6 or more attack during an action phase, Intimidate, which that's what Beat Chest cares about. It's not a random discard, you get a selectively discard, so you can get that Intimidate, which is great. When you pair that with a card like the Rawhide Rumble, which is a 2-cost, 6 attack, 3 block, hey yo, 3 block brute card, it has Beat Chest on it, and it says, when this attacks a hero, if you've beaten chest this turn, intimidate them. So if you beat chest with Rawhide Rumble, playing as Rhinar, you get 2 intimidates, which is like really, really strong and great evasion, which is really important for limited to help break those like fatigue piles that we've seen in past Flesh and Blood sets. So yeah, very much like this. I very much like the inclusion of the evasion effects in limited to help break those fatigue piles, both for you know, sealed as well as draft. And so yeah, I think Rhinar is going to be fun to play, and especially, you know, seeing him in kind of this new light. Once again, I think KO is probably the most interesting hero from here, but we have a couple more heroes to talk about. In this video, we're not going to go over every single card here. We're going to save that for a future review. We do have a new Rhinar specialization, by the way, called Show No Mercy, which is a 3-cost, 6 attack, 3 block. And it says, when this attacks a hero, intimidate them. If the defending hero has no cards in hand, this gets +3. So this is a card that really, really rewards you for intimidating your opponent. So interesting card here. I'll let all of the Rhinar diehards say whether or not this is better than like Alpha Rampage or not. But I think at least in limited, this card seems very, 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 very strong. It is a 3-cost card, right? But you do get that free intimidate. So I don't know, pretty cool card. Like at the base level, 3-cost intimidate, attack for 6. Like, it's not the worst. You could do worse than that. All right, let's talk about some of the other cards. This card is interesting. Each of the classes has one of these type of cards, which is a booze-based card that gives you 2 tokens. So this is a 2-block, 0-cost, blue pitch card, has Go Again, and says create an agility and a might token. The agility tokens give you Go Again. Might tokens give you +1 at the start of your turn. So where are they here? So here's the agility token. At the start of your turn, destroy this, then your next attack this turn gets Go Again. And then you have the might token. At the start of your turn, destroy this, then your next attack this turn gets +1. You also have the vigor token, which a lot of cards that we'll talk about in a little bit later care about. Same kind of deal, but it gives you a resource instead. Each of the classes has a card like this. This is a cycle, right? So you have Smashback Elhorn. We have Pint of Strong and Stout for Guardians. That creates a Might and Vigor. Same stat lines, blue, 3-cost, Go Again. And then we have the Warrior one, which is a Goblet of Blood Run Wine. A cool, like, kind of vampire-looking lady here that creates an Agility and a Vigor token. Really, really important for the Warrior class, by the way, especially Kassai. We'll talk about that when we get there, but creating the Agility tokens is going to be really, really important for Kassai. All right, let's talk about Betsy. I haven't done a video about Betsy yet, so this is Betsy, our new Guardian hero, or for the big version, Betsy skin in the game. I really love the border on this, by the way, the gladiator border. So Betsy is interesting in that she also has an evasion effect, but she cares about one of the key mechanics of heavy hitters, and that's wager. So this says whenever an attack you control wagers, you can pay 2. If you do, the attack gets +1 and overpower, which means it can't be defended by more than 1 action card, which is great. Once again, I'm a big fan of the evasion effects in limited formats and also, in constructed as well to close out the games. She kind of reminds me of a more mechanically parasitical version of Bravo, and this is something that I do kind of want to talk about for the heroes in this set, at least a couple of them, because both Betsy and Olympia, who is a warrior hero with also this cool gladiatorial border, have what I would consider like parasitic mechanics, in that they care heavily about the wager mechanic, which is a new mechanic for this set, and I imagine not a mechanic we'll see in many other sets. So we'll talk about that when we get to Olympia. But for Betsy, I think Betsy's actually like quite good. Getting that +1 and overpower for a cost of 2 is like not too bad at all. And she does have a lot of cards that care about wager, like her specialization here, Bet Big, which is a 4-drop, 8 attack, 3 block spec. And it says when this attacks a hero, you may wager a gold, might, and vigor with them. And then for 2 additional more, with her ability, it'll get +1 and overpower. So this is a 9 overpower on hit. If you did the wager, you get all those tokens. And if you don't know what a wager is, it says when this chain link resolves, if this hit, you create a might, a gold, might, and vigor token. Otherwise, your opponent gets it. So you're basically wagering whether or not the attack is going to hit. So you're like, crossing your fingers. But with the evasion effect of overpower, there's a really good chance that you can hit. Overpower is kind of like a sort of fixed version of dominate, which says it can't be defended by more than 1 action card. They can defend with attack action or attack reactions, defense reactions, or they can defend with like block cards, because the block cards aren't action cards or equipment, and stuff like that. But only 1 action card, which is pretty cool. So yeah, I think Betsy is probably going to be pretty strong, and I'm very curious to see what the other Guardian hero is. But in the confines of heavy hitters, I think she's going to be pretty strong. You also have other cards like Bigger Than Big, which is a 3-drop aura that says at the start of your turn, destroy this, then your next Guardian attack this turn gets +5. And when this attacks a hero, you may wager a might token with them. So you combine that with Bet Big and Betsy's ability. So this is going to be coming in for 14 overpower, wager, create 4 tokens. You create a gold, might, and vigor, and then you also create a might token off of Bigger Than Big. I'm pretty sure these abilities stack, because it'll have this effect, and then it'll have this effect as well. So I think there'll be two separate wager triggers, which I think is pretty cool, just to generate a whole bunch of tokens. All right, let's move on to the warrior heroes. We've already done a whole video talking about Kassai. I think Kassai is very strong, and on just paper, I think she might be one of the strongest warrior heroes just in the game after she's printed. She's very cool, very good. What she does, she says, if you've drawn a card this turn, your sword attacks cost 1 less to activate, which is really sweet. And she also says, once per turn action, banish 2 red and 2 yellow cards from your graveyard. Hey, it's flavorful, right? It's blood on the sand. The next time a weapon you control hits a hero this turn, create a gold token. So this is going to be a way to be able to draw those cards to make your weapon attacks cost 1 less. And her weapon of choice is the returning Centauri Saber. And I should note, the Centauri Saber does not have Go Again built in. So Kassai is really going to care about giving your sabers Go Again, so you can attack with both of them for free. And here's the young version of her. Absolutely beautiful, done by one of my favorite artists, Soyame. I think, like I said, I think Kassai is going to be very powerful. But one of the key things with her is just being able to give her weapons Go Again, and you have a lot of warrior cards in the set that do that through the use of this, create an agility token. So like we have the Goblet of Blood Run Wine, and then we also have some of the wager cards and other cards that create agility tokens. You have stuff like this Brute Warrior card, Wage Agility, which lets you wager an agility token, and it's also a 3 for 7, which is really good. We see a lot of 3 for 7s in heavy hitters, which I think is great. This is a great stat line to deal a lot of damage or to push damage through and to possibly get that that wager hit. And it also generates an agility. We have other ways to guarantee agility tokens like this Agile Windup, which is another Brute Warrior card. This is another 3 for 7, but has this instant speed effect where you can discard it and create an agility token. That has to be from hand. You cannot discard this from the, the combat chain or anything like that. And you also have cards like Test of Agility, which has a brand new mechanic called Clash. And this one is a block card. So this is a Brute Warrior block that says when this defends, clash with the attacking hero, the winner creates an agility token. And Clash says, clashing heroes reveal the top card of their deck. The hero that reveals the card with the greatest attack wins. Now, this Clash effect is pretty interesting in Warrior because traditionally Warrior doesn't have a lot of attack action cards, but as you've seen, it does in heavy hitters with cards like that Agile Windup being a 7 attack red, as well as stuff like that Wage Agility, which is also a 7 attack card. We also have some other ones that we'll talk about a little bit later, like Wage Gold, which is a really, really interesting card. But yeah, kassai, you're going to be playing some attack actions, you're going to be playing some reactions and cards that give you go again, which I think is really, really cool. Next, we have Olympia. So this is the last hero we're going to talk about today. And interesting. He's very, very interesting. I think he has the most parasitic mechanic from the heroes in this set alongside of Betsy, because if you don't have any wagers, he doesn't do anything at all. So Olympia, once again, he looks awesome, and he has a really cool, that gladiatorial frame. His adult version is Olympia Prized Fighter. Very, very, traditional-looking Spartan-type warrior. And he says, the first time each of your attacks wins a wager, create a gold token. So Olympia is all about making them golds and wagering. If you don't have wagers, he doesn't do anything at all. And that's one of the things that I find kind of interesting about the design of both Olympia and Betsy. Probably no coincidence that they have this kind of border and they both care about wagering. But outside of wagering, they don't really do anything. And I think it's interesting because it's what I would call a parasitic mechanic, right? It's a mechanic that exists solely in the heavy hitter set and likely not many other places. I can see this showing up here and there in supplemental things or the expansion slot. But if they keep printing heroes like this every set, if every set has heroes with parasitic mechanics, you'll get to a point where it's really, really hard to support all of them through stuff like the expansion slot, because not every set can have, a wager card and then also, the next parasitic hero mechanic and then the next one and then the next one. So it's just something that I like to think about and something that we should note right now going into this. Currently, probably not a big deal, but in the future, we'll have to see how much support the wager mechanic actually has. On a more micro level in the heavy hitter set, I think this is actually really interesting, and it really, really rewards you for drafting or constructing decks with this wager mechanic. And there's plenty of them, right? We have cards like his specialization, which obviously cares about wager, which says it's an X cost blue 3-block attack reaction that says choose X plus 1. So if X is 0, you can still do one of these effects, and you can give target attack the ability to wager an agility, a gold, or a vigor token, or give that attack plus Y, where Y is the number of times it has wagered. So if you pay 3 for this card, you can give that attack plus 3 and all of these wager effects. And then you also have the Olympia on-hit effect to create that gold token, which I think is really, really cool. So once again, he really cares about that wagering. I would also like to say he also really cares about gold, which I think makes cards like Cash In from old sets pretty valuable. I think the same is true for kassai as well. But just being able to generate those gold tokens and then to use a single gold to play Cash In to draw those 2 cards is really, really cool. If you didn't know, Cash In is a card from Crucible of War that costs 4, has go again, draws you 2 cards, and has an alternate cost of paying either 4 copper, 2 silver, or 1 gold. Sorry, hit the pop filter there. But yeah, just being able to cash in a gold, draw 2 cards, I think is actually really, really strong. So you should probably pick up your cash-ins if you want to build Olympia or kassai even. You also have other ways to wager. So you have Hold'em, which is 1 cost, 3 block, plus 3 to your next warrior attack, and when it attacks a hero, you may wager a vigor with them. As well as other cards that are a little bit more generic, like the Wage Gold, which I think is really, really cool, which is a 3-cost, 7-attack, 2-block card that has this new keyword, Universal, which says, while in any zone, this is the same class as your hero, which I think is really, really cool. This has some really interesting applications outside of heavy hitters. It also makes it so any class can get in on the wager game because you can play this in literally any deck. And it also says when this class attacks a hero, you can wager a gold with them, which is pretty cool. I think this card will be a pretty strong role filler in limited formats. The blues counting as a 6 for KO, I think is really interesting. All of these 3-cost 7-attack reds, the blue versions are going to be really interesting for KO because they're going to count as 6s in hand and for discarding purposes, which is really, really cool. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of like my overall review. I do a much, more in-depth review over on Channel Fireball. I'm not sure when that video is going to be posted, but I talk more about a lot of these cards just in general and my thoughts on stuff like the expansion slot cards. Here on Red Zone Rogue, I'm going to do like a more comprehensive review once we have the entire set list out. And I, of course, will have my own spoiler video for heavy hitters on I think it's on the 16th or 17th. It's a really cool card, and I'm really excited to talk about it. But yeah, we'll also likely talk about these, more on the Living Legends podcast. We've already talked about stuff like Raise an Army and some other generic kind of cards here and there. But I just really wanted to cover the heroes and give you my thoughts on them. I think they're all really, really fun. I don't hate the reprint of Rhinar though, and I really understand where a lot of Brute players are coming from after Rhinar getting reprinted in Classic Battles alongside a shiny new Dorinthia, and then now getting reprinted here in Heavy Hitters alongside a shiny new KO, as well as a shiny new Kassai. I understand Rhinar fans being like, hey, where's our new Rhinar? But at the same time, I do think it's pretty cool to be able to play Rhinar, the classic version, in a new light and in a more controlled way, especially with this new beat chest mechanic. So just, really interested to see what Rhinar can do in this kind of like new environment with this new level of support. I also think it's going to be pretty rough sometimes playing against Rhinar. I hope you don't really care about blocking very much, because I have a feeling, especially even in like limited, you have these guaranteed discards that is just going to rip your opponent's hand just right out from them. So yeah, that's heavy hitters today. Really, really interesting stuff. I think off the just first glance, really, really interested in KO, really, really interested in Kassai. I think Betsy is going to be really, really fun in limited. Not sure about Betsy or Olympia in constructed yet. And obviously we have Rhinar. Rhinar fans love Rhinar. They're going to be playing Rhinar till the end of days, I think. And very curious to know your thoughts on the Rhinar reprint here, as well as like the new versions of KO and Kassai, and even stuff like Olympia and Betsy. Just interesting, and really, really interesting. I think my biggest takeaway is I'm really excited to play limited. There is going to be a limited ultimate pit fight version where you draft and then you split the pot up into like 2 UPF groups, and I think that's going to be super, super fun. I really, really want to do that. Definitely want to do some like gameplay streams with some friends. Maybe we'll do like maybe a sealed UPF with heavy hitters. I think that could be really fun. But yeah, let me know what you think in the comments down below. What do you think of heavy hitters? Are you excited for it? I think this is the most excited I've been for a new Flesh and Blood set since Outsiders. I mean, it reminds me a lot of Outsiders, but this to me just looks like a good old-fashioned fun draft experience, as well as limited. Unsure about this for like classic constructed or blitz. There's some really cool and fun stuff like Kassai, like I said, but for me, this looks like a absolute blast for limited. So thank you all so much for watching. We're gonna cut the rambling now. Definitely have some more trading card game content here on Red Zone Rogue, Flesh and Blood, as well as some other card games. Stick around for that here in 2024, and we'll see you then.